over the coming days.
Tom Bateman, our State Department correspondent, Kashaya Jonevi, our BBC Persian correspondent. Thank you to you both. Well, the future of Ukraine was also a key point of discussion among world leaders there at the G7 summit. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomed what he called important results after world leaders made commitments to support Ukraine against Russia's full-scale invasion. President Zelensky said the G7 leaders agreed to strengthen Ukraine's air defenses and increase pressure on Russia through sanctions as well. And with me now in studio, we have Daniel Baer, Senior Vice President and Director of the Europe Program at the Carnegie Endowment, also the former U.S. Ambassador to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. I did want to ask you about the Iran deal first, if you don't mind.
Yes,
we finally have the details. What do you think this deal means for those leaders there at the G7 summit? And is this something that you think that they might support, that they think is a good deal?
I mean, I don't know whether they think it's a good deal. I think they're happy that there is a deal. And frankly, we all should be happy that the fighting has stopped. If this deal makes the fighting stop, that's good. I think there will be a lot of questions about what was the war for, as you said in the previous segment, that people are asking, because it's not clear. Well, it's called a memorandum of understanding. It's certainly a memorandum. We'll find out how much understanding there is. We should remember that the JCPOA was over 150 pages long, outlining all kinds of commitments. This is 2 or 3 pages. There's a lot of work left to do in the next 60 days, and that will really be the test.
Yeah, still some things to hash out there. G7 leaders really hailing, though, some developments on Ukraine. I think it's fair to say. How significant do you think this agreement that they put forth, every one of those countries signing on the dotted line to further support Ukraine, how significant was that?
I think we will see whether that's significant. The significant piece there is President Trump. Obviously, the other G7 leaders have actually been increasingly aligned with each other on the importance of supporting Ukraine, recognizing that Ukraine's future is deeply connected to Europe's future and to the future of the free world. And so they've all been on side, as it were, for the last year. It's been President Trump who's been kind of oscillating. And if this is the opportunity for President Trump to move from his attention from the conflict in the war in Iran back to the war that Russia is waging against Ukraine, if it's a chance for him to harvest the possibility for some positive progress, having effectively lost the war in Iran because we've been left in a worse off strategic position, can he now, by supporting Ukraine along with European allies, really make progress there?
Well, we heard the French President Emmanuel Macron, and he said that President Trump, quote, has taken note that there is no serious will on Russia's side for peace. If that is indeed what the president said, what do you think that would mean for the U.S.'s role in peace negotiations?
If that's true, that is the main puzzle piece that has been missing for the last 12 months or more. President Trump has not recognized, he has repeatedly believed, and I think we must take it in good faith, he's repeatedly believed when Putin tells him that he's willing to sit down at the table and wage peace, he's believed that. I think if it's true that he's finally recognized that Putin has not achieved his war aims, and that the only way he's going to negotiate is if pressure is brought to bear upon him to bring him to the negotiating table, then that's a major shift, and that's one that President Trump should be proud of coming around to, and that President Macron should indeed celebrate.
We heard from the president himself, President Trump, signaling that he's considering reimposing these sanctions on Russian oil that he lifted amid the Iran war to try to ease the pressure on the energy markets. If he does indeed do that, do you think that would up the pressure on Russia?
That would up the pressure or return some of the pressure that existed before the Iran war. It won't be enough. There's going to need to be more pressure, both pressure on Russia and more efforts to support Ukraine. This war has been going on, as you know, for more than 4 years. We should also note that May was one of the deadliest months for Ukrainian civilians since the war began. It is not just boiling along at a low boil. Russia is increasingly being more desperate and attacking civilian targets. And the Ukrainians desperately need support on air defenses, which is one of the things that Macron and other European leaders were talking to President Trump about, because that's one of the places where President Trump can be most helpful.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big point of discussion there. And on that, I mean, this is something that Volodymyr Zelensky has been asking for months, maybe years, especially these Patriot air missiles, really crucial for defending the airspace there. But does the U.S. or does Europe have enough of those Patriot missiles left at this point after so much munitions were used during that war there in Iran?
Yeah, one of the most staggering statistics that I've learned in the last few months is that in the first 72 hours of the U.S. war against Iran, the United States, as well as our partners in the Middle East, defending themselves against Iranian counterattacks, went through as many Patriots as Ukraine has used in 4 years of war.
Wow.
In 72 hours, a year and a half of production. And so, yes, those supply lines are tight, but the Ukrainians need them more than anybody right now. And the Ukrainians have actually demonstrated that they can use them wisely. They don't use them as a first resort, they use them as a last resort. They become very adept at using drones to take down missiles and other drones, and so they really need the Patriots as the last line of defense.
Dan Baer, the former U.S. ambassador to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. Thank you as always. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.